Corbin Burnes got traded to the Milwaukee. No, Corbin Burnes has been traded to the Baltimore Orioles in a trade including DL Hall, Joey Ortiz, and the 34th pick in the MLB draft. Corbin Burnes, one of the premier pitchers in the game, former Cy Young Award winner, is exactly what the Orioles have been looking for and is exactly who they needed. You look at this Orioles team last year, one of the most electrifying teams in the game last year. Wouldn't say in the postseason, even though people were chalking up the Orioles to be a World Series contender. I had the Orioles at least making it to the ALCS, but maybe that was a little bit being a little too optimistic, because how their pitching situation was in the postseason was a sight to see, and it wasn't a good way. A team ERA of 7, if I remember correctly, and the only really bright spots were Kyle Bradish, who had himself a 9 strikeout game, and Cionel Perez, if I'm saying his name right. And also the Orioles only led for 1 inning that entire series with Texas. Long are gone the 100-loss seasons for the Orioles, at least for the next decade, in a ultra competitive AL East where arguably all 5 teams can really be competitive. I know I'm very hard on the Red Sox and what they have going on, but you put them in another division, they're competing. A good team that got better bringing in Corbin Burnes, knew he was going to be testing free agency, seeing that he hired Scott Boras, and with Milwaukee being pretty much notorious for not spending a whole lot of money, I guess outside something like a Christian Yelich, Milwaukee ended up moving Corbin Burnes because they weren't going to pay him. And just seeing how the arbitration stuff went, that I'm pretty sure that pissed off Corbin Burnes, and he was just like, I'm just going to be getting ready to go. And getting sent to Baltimore from the Brewers' park, sending him to Camden Yards with how left field is nowadays, it's going to do nothing but just help Corbin Burnes. Probably going to have arguably one of his better seasons, and he's been elite since 2021. 2021, his Cy Young Award season, and he had a FIP of 1.68. The biggest issue it seems like it's been for Corbin Burnes is the fact that he gives up a lot of home runs. I saw that in a nutshell in the postseason start he had against the Diamondbacks, where he had 4 earned runs and he gave up 3 homers. It seems like that was a reoccurring thing for him, but going to a more pitcher-friendly environment now with Camden Yards, with left field, I feel his numbers are just only going to benefit from that. Like, dude's one of the premier strikeout artists. He was a season removed from leading the league in strikeouts, I believe, with like 230. He had a league best 1.069 whip, 200 strikeouts, 193 innings pitched in a down season. What the Orioles get with Corbin Burnes, you're going to get somebody who's a workhorse, a guy who's a strikeout artist. He has just nasty stuff with that cutter and his curveball. He doesn't walk a whole lot of batters. Like, even if you think he's had a couple of down seasons since his Cy Young season, he is still arguably like a top 10 pitcher in baseball, and he's going to the best division in baseball in the AL East, and he's going to be trying to help a team make it to the World Series, because I think that's kind of the goal now for Baltimore, is to make it to the World Series and ultimately win the World Series. Like, I love this move for Baltimore. Even if it's just a 1-year rental, I still think it's great. You get the ace that you've been looking for to be able to kind of help the other guys like Grayson Rodriguez, like the younger players in that pitching rotation, be able to thrive and be able to be an innings eater and be able to be that go-to guy in that rotation, and have everybody else be kind of complimentary and allow them to be able to be productive, but not having the pressure of having to be the ace of the staff if they're not ready for it. Because we already know Baltimore's offense is awesome, and it's only going to keep getting better with a bunch of guys coming up in the farm for Baltimore. But you have Jackson Holiday on the way. We already saw what Gunnar Henderson can do on a Rookie of the Year campaign, and he's only gonna probably get better from here. You have Anthony Santander, one of my personal favorite players in the league. Adley Rutschman, he's kind of just like the superstar, kind of overseeing everything, being one of the best catchers in the league. Offense is going to be good. Pitching is the real issue, and especially for the back of the bullpen, they brought in Craig Kimbrell to kind of supplement losing Felix Bautista to Tommy John surgery. So we're not going to see him until 2025, and this team can even get even scarier if they manage to bring in Corbin Burnes for the long term. 2 days removed from when it was reported that the Orioles were getting sold for $1.7 billion to an ownership group led by Orioles legend Cal Ripken Jr. And now with bringing in one of the premier pitchers in the league, Baltimore was already a good team, but they just got even better and got even more dangerous for the AL East. So they They're looking to repeat as division champs. They're looking to be the new top dog in the AL East. And I applaud them for it. I love when teams reinforce their chances and just build off of a great season and not start taking steps backwards. They keep moving forward, and I love to see that out of a team like Baltimore. Brewers side, it sucks if you're a Brewers fan, of course, losing Corbin Burnes. It's just how we got to this point, because Corbin Burnes, it seemed like it was more inevitable he was going to get moved. The Brewers pretty much kind of throwing Burnes under the bus in those arbitration hearings and kind of trying to like devalue him just for, it was like probably for just like pocket change compared to like what these guys have been making. Corbin Burnes kind of lost trust in the Brewers and kind of seeing how the Brewers were going to operate with him. So it seemed like he was going to get moved. They got back Joey Ortiz. He seems like he's going to be the everyday third baseman, or he's going to be an everyday player for the Brewers. At least from what I saw, he seems like he has a good bat and quality glove. Pretty much for these guys they're getting back, it's about being able to have cost control and team control over young players in terms of getting some sort of value back for Corbin Burnes. Joey Ortiz and DL Hall aren't going to be free agents until 2030. I think Joey Ortiz is going to be just fine in Milwaukee. It seems that a lot of young players kind of have like a slow start in the bigs. They made their way to Milwaukee and then they kind of tap into their potential a little bit, especially with it being more of a hitter friendly ballpark. Like look at William Contreras, who's one of the top catchers in the league last year. Willie Adames, he broke out with Milwaukee. Willie Adames is important to note in this situation actually, because he's in a contract year too. So what could be stopping the Brewers from moving on from Willie Adames? I haven't seen any reports about him potentially being moved. The last I really saw about that was when the Dodgers were looking, I think we're looking at him, and there were reports that the Dodgers were looking to add him. This offseason has been just slow, and it's not even from a Red Sox fan's perspective, but just kind of slow all around. Like you had the big moments with like Ohtani signing, and I would say Yamamoto as well, and Soto getting traded to the Yankees. But then other than that, it's kind of been, you know, like it's been like it peaks and valleys, I guess I should say, because there has been like some of the big fish have been on the move, but you still have a lot of people on the free agent market, especially with Blake Snell and Montgomery and Jorge Soler. It seems like it's going to be ramping up because the season's going to be starting sooner rather than later at this point. DL Hall, it seems like it's a lot more of the intriguing one, because Milwaukee has seemed to they've done a really good job when it comes to pitching, whether it's starting pitching, what we've seen with Corbin Burnes and Freddie Peralta, who seems like he's going to be the main man out there for the Brewers rotation going forward. Josh Hader, Corbin Burnes to an extent as well, because he started out as a reliever. DL Hall, it seems more likely he may be a reliever, at least for this Brewers team. But another thing is that this dude has some absolute heat. Being a left-handed pitcher and being able to throw gas, and seems like he has great stuff, really high potential, at least in terms of being with Milwaukee, and kind of create some sort of consistency, because it seems like when he was with Baltimore, he didn't have that, so that's why he wasn't really looked at as much of a starter. So hoping for him that he's able to figure something out with the Brewers pitching staff. And I guess at the absolute worst, he's a pretty nasty arm that you can bring out of the back end of your bullpen. It's really hard to gauge like how much value like a certain draft pick would really have, to be honest. How many players we see come into the league every year or just make their way into professional baseball. So like that remains to be seen, but a pretty high draft pick like that, find yourself probably another quality player with that draft pick. I'll at least say that much. Brewers, I mean, they ended up getting worse, and it just sucks from a fan perspective that they trade one of their better pitchers, if not their best arm of the last couple of years. Kind of anticipating that Willie Adames may be on the trade block sooner rather than later. Who knows, they may still just be like just sneaky good in this upcoming season in that NL Central. As for the Orioles bringing in Corbin Burnes, one of the best pitchers in baseball, and you're putting him into a more of a pitcher environment in Camden Yards with a really good lineup. This fit and him being that frontline ace for this Orioles team, I'm anticipating Corbin Burnes to have one of his better seasons of the last couple of years. Like I think he has a chance to really like assert himself again as one of like the top 3 best pitchers in baseball.